Good day and welcome to a new episode of Over Underrated, a music podcast with Fran and Babs. I am Fran, and today we are discussing all things Australia. We have AC/DC as potentially overrated, and The Vines, one of Babs' favourite bands of all time, as potentially underrated. I have made the AC/DC playlist, and Babs has made the Vines playlist, so we shall discuss 10 songs from each band and then decide at the end. So please sit back, relax, of course subscribe and follow us, and enjoy the podcast, guys.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, what are we calling this podcast?
Was it over underrated?
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
Welcome back to another episode of Over Underrated. How are you doing, Babs?
I am good, Fran, despite being really sunburned and having not one, not two, not three, but 4 mosquito bites on my shoulder.
4. I don't even have one, so
I mean, be very happy. Yeah, it's quite frustrating because, as I was telling you before the record, I'm going to be a bridesmaid soon, so, you know, weddings, photos, and I'm going to look pretty patchy and pretty bitten, so I'm just applying a lot of after sun, taking antihistamines, and keeping my fingers crossed for the best.
Are you the kind of gal to spray tan for a wedding?
No, absolutely
not.
No, I am only British up to a point. Even though I'm sure it would make me look a lot better, but fuck it, I'm going au naturel.
I mean, I always spray tan girls for weddings.
Like would you like to do Strictly Come Dancing to be able to?
The orange Fran dancing.
Orange Fran, I like that. But yeah, how are you, Fran?
As I'm English, I should complain that it's too hot. That's what we do. Apart from that, I am excited because I have a lot of music to go and see this month.
Ooh.
I have Tears for Fears and I have Truck Festival. So that is going to be glorious.
Very exciting. Like, who's playing at Truck Festival this year?
Truck Festival, without looking at my phone. Bombay Bicycle Club, Sam Fender, Vector.
Oh, good.
I've mentioned a billion times before. Sundara Karma, Sigrid.
I don't know that. Sundar Karma, did you say?
Sundara Karma.
Sundara Karma, I don't know who that is.
Sports Team.
Oh, okay. So
Inhaler, Palace, Shame, Big Moon.
Oh, Shame are good.
And some lower level artists.
That you don't know.
And Khalees as well.
Oh, Khalees is great.
There we go.
Khalees,
I knew there'd be one person you like.
Khalees is really good live. I must have told the story of how...
Oh, and Kasabian, as mentioned previously on a podcast.
Oh, the 2 Ks that I like. not the 3. Let's move away from that quickly. But yeah, I must have told the story of, like, I saw Khalees live for free at a festival in Leuven here in Belgium, but the crowd did not appreciate her, and she did a greatest hits set with a DJ kind of fading stuff in and out, and it was great. I think you'll have a good time.
If she does some cooking on stage, I'll be very happy.
Yeah. I mean, why not do both?
Why not? Why not
do both? I mean, isn't that what comedian George Egg does?
He does indeed.
Yeah.
He does indeed. But he doesn't sing about any milkshakes.
Oh, I mean, imagine.
Sadly.
Imagine her mixing a milkshake while making it. I mean, that would be a good feat as well, wouldn't it? You know, dancing and shaking, not getting any of it on her clothes. Reach out to us, Khalees. We've got some ideas for you.
I'll send her an email.
Yeah. But today, we're discussing artists from a completely different location and a completely different genre, aren't we, Fran? Hey, segue!
We are indeed. We are going down under, and we'll be discussing an overrated band called AC/DC and an underrated band called The Vines.
Yes, we're talking about two Australian bands. One of them absolutely ginormous. The other not really a small band, but one that's overdue a bit of a reckoning, and one of my favourite bands from the mid-noughties. So I am quite excited to get into it, Fran. You made the playlist for AC/DC, so introduce them. Why have you picked them today as overrated?
Okay, guys, I am not an AC/DC fan, so when we're thinking of a band from Australia who we could consider overrated, we didn't have many to choose from because there's not many massive bands from Australia. So we chose AC/DC, so therefore I took the task on working out a playlist, even though I probably knew about 7 songs.
Right, okay.
So
I didn't know this.
So, as a big AC/DC fan, I've delved really deep into the back catalogue by basically choosing all singles from the past 50 years. So yeah, I have no history in AC/DC. They were just one of those rock bands that existed that you would hear during a 90s film with Arnold Schwarzenegger occasionally. I knew one of them had a schoolboy outfit, and that was basically it. I think I only found out they had 2 singers in the past 5 years. I had no idea at all. So I just literally went through their albums and chose songs from each album and picked some of the big hitters. I left some of them off because we all know Back in Black.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that's a good song.
Actually. It is a good song. It is a good song, but we've heard it far too much. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so I just drip fed. And I've never seen them live. I don't own any albums. I think I discovered most of the songs during the film Iron Man 2.
Really?
Which is quite bad because considering I worked in a music shop and I'm over 20 years old. But yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe the UK doesn't really play them. I know in America they seem to be huge and Australia seem to be huge. But yeah, they seem to be the sort of band who always play a stadium, but you would never really hear a song on the radio or anywhere, really.
Occasionally, I think some of the songs that you've picked certainly, but on specific radio stations like Radio X or maybe Heart every now and again. No.
Yeah, but it would be Highway to Hell or Back in Black. Yeah. That would be basically it. Like when I discovered Thunderstruck, I assumed that was an old classic.
I thought it was an Iron Maiden song. We're going to come to that. Yeah. When I first heard the riff, I was like, oh, okay.
The Young Brothers from Glasgow, and they moved over with their 8 siblings.
Whoa.
Their eldest brother was in a band called the Easy Beats, who became had a big hit in Australia, and then he became their producer, and they formed AC/DC after seeing it on their sister's sewing machine.
It was actually their sister who suggested it. Yeah.
And then later on, a taxi driver told him that means bisexual.
Really?
and I had no idea. Yeah. They're like, did it? And then later on in life, people said it means Antichrist, Devil's Children. But they stick to the same story. It's the same machine. They formed in 1975, and then they replaced their lead singer because he was a bit too glam with Bon Scott, who is the most Australian-sounding man of all time, even though I think he's also Scottish as well from birth.
Yeah,
so basically, AC/DC are the most Australian band ever, although 3 of them are Scottish, and their new singer's English. They had some band changes, and then, they got bigger and bigger by playing all the clubs. Then they got too big for Australia, and then by the late 70s they were hiring Mutt Lang, and then having massive hits like Highway to Hell. Bon Scott sadly passed away in 1980 from an alcohol incident, and then they just thought about quitting, but Bon Scott's family told them to carry on, so they replaced him with Brian Johnson from Newcastle, and then released Back as Black, which I think sold 30 million albums.
I've got some stats for you coming.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And then they've been going strong for the past 40 years and released a new album a couple of years ago, although Malcolm has retired from ill health, replaced by his nephew Stevie Young. So, Babs, tell me everything you know about AC/DC.
Well, my literal first note is I don't know much about them. So I'm not a particular fan either, but they are one of those bands where I'm like, surely there's a playlist out there for me. They've been going for so long and have so many songs. Surely there's a playlist, because Back in Black, I think, is a great song. And I don't mind that being overplayed compared to some of the other songs that you've included on your playlist. But yeah, people talk about them being influential, but are they? They're productive, but why them over other people making similar music? I don't know. Maybe you can tell me.
Well, they certainly have the word I can't say. Riffs aplenty. Surely by now Angus must have run out. Surely.
I was thinking so many albums, surely you've done that guitar solo somewhere else and you don't realise it, surely.
It's like when in the 80s when we had the electro synth boom, there's so many single finger keyboard riffs. And then after a while, like bands like Depeche Mode and OMD moved away because obviously they've run out. Like let's do some layers of synths rather than a catchy riff, because there's only so many things you can do really. So yeah, I'm surprised that Angus is still going. I guess hardcore fans may think, oh, hang on, that's a repeat of his song from like 1977 or something. But he seems to still be giving it large, and it still seem to be the bluesy hard rock band of all. But are they influential?
Yeah, I don't know.
I can hear a bit of Guns N' Roses occasionally, like Thunderstruck.
See, I don't know Guns N' Roses either, so I'm like, maybe it's been filtered through other bands that I don't know so much in the 70s and 80s, because I guess my rock era is a bit the 90s, but not so like, was grunge influenced by this? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I guess like bands like Wolf Mother.
Yeah.
You'd be looking at AC/DC.
Sorry.
But yeah, like Thunderstruck sounds a bit like Muse. That could be a Muse riff.
Oh. I
I
feel like I'm gonna say okay later, Muse. But yeah, I mean, it was, again, interesting to research. I finally found out why the hell Angus Young wears the schoolboy outfits, because, again, his sister Margaret suggested it, and it said he tried a number of stage costumes such as Spider-Man, Zorro, a gorilla, and a parody of Superman named Superang. But it was actually his uniform from Ashfield Boys High School in Sydney, so, respect for the brand. But yeah, so here are some facts for you on their kind of success.
Go on then.
So they sold over 1.3 million CDs in the US during 2007, despite not having released a new album since 2000 at that point. And for ages, they actually didn't put their catalogue online until November 2012. So that's kind of interesting that they still managed to do that.
Thank you. Otherwise, this podcast would not exist.
Exactly. And yeah, so in 2009, the Recording Industry Association of America named them the 5th best-selling band in US history and the 10th best-selling artist, selling more albums than Madonna and Mariah Carey. They've sold more than 200 million records worldwide, including 75 million albums in the United States. And Back in Black has sold an estimated 50 million units worldwide, making it the second highest selling album by any artist and the highest selling album by any band. Like, did you know they were this successful? Because I did not.
I know that, because it's quite mad, isn't it? That your lead singer dies and then you bring out an album a few months later and it's your biggest ever album. Like, that does not happen often.
No.
You think a few fans would be like, fuck you, you're not Bon Scott.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's insane. And like, I remember when they first came back, I think 2008, after a big break, they had the most patronising like advert on UK TV.
Oh,
It was a man in his shed listening to AC/DC doing air guitar, and his wife going, "Oi, are you coming back in?" And then it goes, "In a minute." It's like as if only people who listen to AC/DC have to 50-year-old white men.
Wow.
In the shed. I was like, really?
Wow.
Come on, at least try and pretend you can influence other people. I thought, come on, that must be a bit of a joke.
I mean, yeah, it's a stereotype. Like, love the nagging wife as well. How fun.
Yeah.
But
right.
Fran, I thought, given what I've just told you, so they've sold the second highest selling album by any artist. I found a list on Wikipedia, which is the 8 albums that have sold more than 40 million copies worldwide. So I wanted to test you, and I'm gonna give you some clues, obviously, as we go. But yeah, what do you think is the best selling album of all time?
Hi, this is your editor, Fran. Be aware that these stats were at the time of recording and may have changed since. Now, back to the podcast. Isn't it? Well, in UK, it's great. It's a Queen.
But it's not Queen, and this is worldwide.
Worldwide. Yeah. Well, I guess you can have to go for things like Thriller.
There we go. Number 1, Michael Jackson, Thriller. Okay, so number 3 is from 1992. And let's say it's not just one artist.
Is this a soundtrack?
It's a soundtrack.
It's The Bodyguard.
It's The Bodyguard. Number 3, the third best-selling album of all time is the soundtrack.
But can you think of other songs apart from the big hit?
Absolutely not. But I mean, I haven't seen the film, so...
Oh, okay.
There we go.
I have.
Number 4 is the greatest hits from 1976. Who does it belong to?
ABBA?
Nope.
76.
Think about how Americans buy a lot. There we go. Well done.
Okay.
Greatest hits 71 to 75. Again, surprising, not surprising. Number 5, a British classic from 1973.
1973. He was big in 1973. Bowie?
No. Think people who were already bigger earlier.
Pink Floyd?
Yes. Which one?
Dark Side of the Moon.
Very good. That's number 5. 3 to go. Number 6, you've just mentioned one of the people who was definitely involved in the making of this album from 1997. Very different vibes, and I cannot believe this is the 6th best-selling album of all time.
Who have I mentioned? 1997.
Yeah, so you've mentioned it's not someone in AC/DC, but someone involved in AC/DC.
Mutt.
Who was?
Shania Twain.
Come on over. The 6th best-selling album of all time.
Fuck me.
Fucking hell. I mean, listen, catchy songs, but again, bloody. She's definitely, if we do Canada Part 2, we are picking her as overrated. Number 7, American classic from 1977, very famous band.
7 American band at 1970.
Well, actually, American. Well, that will give it away. Not just American.
Oh, is it Rumours?
It is Rumours by Fleetwood Mac. Well done. And
thank you.
Finally, also from 1977, also a soundtrack.
Is it Ha 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 Staying Alive?
I am clapping because Fran
Thank
correct.
you so
Very
much.
few
Thank
hints,
you.
but yeah, what a list! What a mad list! I thought, especially Shania Twain.
That is. I always find it mad that she didn't do anything for the past 25 years. Really,
she
was
did
massive.
a guest spot in Broad City where she was very funny, and Abby had to be her personal trainer. Very good. Recommend checking it out. But that's all I've seen recently as well. But yeah, so I think one or two more things to say about AC/DC. I really enjoyed that the band are finding out that the band are colloquially known as Akadaka in Australia.
Akadaka, mate.
Akadaka, according to Wikipedia. And yeah, and it's another kind of over underrated bingo because the book Under My Thumb, which I mention a lot about women who talk about the sexist bands, there is a chapter on AC/DC. And yeah, she kind of debates of because there are some songs where literally it's kind of like a rape fantasy and let me put my love into you, but she argues that the women in Whole Lot of Rosie and You Shook Me All Night Long, had agency and are having a good time, sort of thing. So she's like, I'm a feminist, but I don't think it's too problematic. Which I'm like, I don't know. I'm a bit on the fence on that because I think that's obviously much worse than AC/DC, but yeah.
I was actually looking through the YouTube comments. You can see a little thumbnail of the faces. I couldn't see any women talking about them at all. But it's weird though, because Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith, they have a massive female fan base. I don't know why AC/DC seemingly don't. I
mean, did they cultivate it? Because I guess they're a little bit glamour. Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith, right? And especially Aerosmith with their very androgynous lead singer. I think that's, and what's his face, Joe Tyler?
Perry.
I was like, no, Steven Tyler. Oh, brain dead. I think that's going to attract a few more people. But yeah, I don't know. I think, I think of my mum who was a rock fan and she always said that Led Zeppelin are too macho. I think there is something a bit like that about AC/DC as well, right? It's not that they're being like, we are manly men, but it's it really is a very similar kind of music with little flourish and yeah. I
think they've entered the tight jeans and tops off look for the rock. Yeah, they're kind of like the pub rock band who became massive, really, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
I think I describe one song as the pie and beer of music, basically.
But yeah, I couldn't believe how many long songs there were in your playlist. 3 of them were over 5 minutes, and I think because their biggest songs are kind of poppier and shorter. Yeah, I guess it is a pretty varied playlist, but yeah, I think I knew 3 songs from it, and that's it. So,
well, so we begin the
Let's
adventure.
Begin.
Overrated.
So we start off with Let There Be Rock. I thought that would be the perfect opener.
Of course.
I think this is their first big hit around the world. It has Bon describing the history of rock and roll. Mm-hmm. The white man had a genre, was Smells or something?
I don't know, but the black man had the blues. That's all I remember.
And the black man had the blues. I've noticed Angus likes to have space between his guitar stroke. Back in Black, it's dun, gap, dun, gap. And that seems to be, and here we have the dun, dun. Yeah, he likes his gap between his strokes. Yeah, it
sounds like a sex act.
Well, there's a lot of double entendres in his looks, but it's kind of I don't know, the Bon chatting about rock and roll over Angus's traditional rock, and then Angus has like a Chuck Berry guitar solo to end. And when you watch it live, I believe Angus does up to 20 minutes of guitar solos.
Oh my
and
God.
this is without the band backing him, just him playing guitar. I watched a little bit of it.
Wow.
It's fun to see him on the floor spinning around. I'm sure he doesn't.
He
do it
seems
these
like a
days.
very charismatic performer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
he gives it a lot. That little like skippy dance he does.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think also Chuck Berry stuff as well, sort of thing. But yeah, I thought, if they're going to open up the AC/DC playlist, why not do this song? So, what are your thoughts?
So it started quite punky, which I didn't expect, even though we're in 1977, right? So I guess it makes sense. And yeah, it then kind of segues into just voice, bass, and drums, which is quite interesting. And then there's some guitar solos, and then there's some more rhythm guitar and bass. And I enjoyed this much more than I thought there would be, especially the "Let There Be Guitar" kind of section. As it kind of continued, I was like, this is quite long. It could be cut, but the way it builds is fun, and on repeated listens, I enjoyed it more, I think. So it was a good way to start, because I was like, oh, okay, I don't know this side of AC/DC, and this is reasonably enjoyable. And yeah, I'd asked kind of who was singing, and I hope you can tell me on each song, because I have no idea.
So yeah, it's interesting. So this is Bon Scott, their original singer. But when Brian Johnson took over, he said that, I'm not going to be doing an impression of Bon Scott. I've got my own voice. But they do sound pretty much alike.
They do like to a lot of these songs. There's way too much screaming. Way too annoying screaming, and I will tell you. but this one I didn't think so.
I mixed it, I think, about half and half between Bon and Brian. But moving on to another Bon track, this is Riff Raff, a dad rock special. It's got that skipping drums, show off guitar solos. Then I said, it's dirty pioneer rock and roll. I noticed in the comments, one guy goes, "I'm 63, I've got no money, I failed everything. My wife moans at me, but I get out of bed to listen to this. God bless Bon." I was like, really? This?
What a
Aim
comment.
higher, my friend, aim higher.
What a comment. I mean, he has a wife, he hasn't failed at every... I mean, unless they... I mean, it doesn't sound like the relationship is great, so maybe that's why.
I think it might be a separate bedroom kind of thing. What are your thoughts on a Riff Raff?
So I love that you call this a dad rock special, because my first note is, I didn't think this was a million miles away from Cheap Trick, especially at the beginning. There's this kind of section where there's just a bass hook with some drums before the kicking starts. I really enjoyed that, but the shouting here is quite annoying, and a lot of it felt like noodling without structure. I enjoyed it more again on second listen, but yeah, this is one of my least favourites on the list.
Is that a phrase that people know outside of the UK? Riff Raff?
Riff Raff. Yeah, I guess you might not, but it's like someone who, I guess like a lower class person who, how would you describe it? Is
an oink is what other people would describe, maybe.
Inelegant,
peasant.
I guess not a million miles away from chavs in the 2000s, but yeah, not a nice word.
But I guess Bon Scott was a working class hero. That's what so I can see why he would write about that. So moving on to the 90s, because I wanted to mix up the vocalists. So we have Thunderstruck from 1990s Razor's Edge, and like I said before, literally the first time I heard this was on Iron Man 2 soundtrack. I thought, I'm loving that guitar. But yeah, I thought this is a bit like Matt Bellamy. That obviously. It came before Matt Bellamy existed. That really fast picking. It's got that whole stadium rock thunder for the fans to be in Castle Donington with their fists up in the air. Yeah, it's based on Angus's toy Thunder Streak. I don't think we can look into the lyrics too.
I've got the lyrics written down, and for Riff Raff, I wrote, this is a song about nothing as well. So yeah.
I think this is another song about nothing. The word thunder sounds cool in the stadium, doesn't it, guys?
You said it was based on his toy what? Thunder Streak? What's that?
Thunder Streak. I've no, that's all it says.
Okay, right.
Guys, if you know what a Thunder Streak is, let us know.
So yeah, this is the one where I would have guessed it's Iron Maiden from the beginning, not knowing very much about Iron Maiden, to be fair, but if I had to guess. It made me laugh. I found it difficult to listen to it as music. Thunder. And I've written, the screaming is particularly annoying here. Give the men a strepsil, because I think there's more than one. But I really like the arpeggio guitar. It reminded me, and actually the accompanying rhythm guitar, and it reminded me, bizarrely, of Tubular Bells. I was like, I could have just done with listening to those two guitars, and that's it. Why would they have to put all this nonsense on top? So yeah, I enjoyed now kind of matching the song to the name, but no. Just the guitars for me, thank you.
But I can see why you think of Our Maiden, because this is quite a different style to Angus Young.
Yeah.
Because obviously usually it's like a power chord sort of riff, isn't it? This is like being quite noodly. Yeah, it's a bit more metal. And then we're moving on to one of their biggest hits. I think this was their biggest hit. I think it's Broke America, Highway to Hell, produced by Mutt and Bond's last album. And then he wrote the lyrics, and obviously it's kind of speaks about his life. He was on a highway to hell, unfortunately. It's got, like I said before, the riff is spaced between power chords, like Back is Black. It's radio friendly. You know the song. It's probably been sung in 1,000 pubs in karaoke nights.
With some pies and beers, don't forget.
Yeah, some pies and beers.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you said about Back in Black, because I wrote exactly the same for this, of like, I like the restraint. They're very good at that, kind of giving you something and wanting to give you more. Especially leading into the chorus. Yeah, of course, it's a classic. It's a bit more polished than the songs provided so far. And yeah, rock and roll has never felt so poppy in a way, because it is pure rock and roll, but it is, there's something undeniably catchy about it, but it is so overplayed and just not that interesting. Like, I feel like even if you're in a pub or at a wedding, okay, fine, it might be nice to sing along to the chorus, but I just want to sing along to the chorus and then be done with it.
Can you work out how popular they are in Europe?
Well, I think, given that they're somewhere between, kind of rock and roll and metal, like, for sure, you're always going to... I'm guessing in places like, I don't know, Finland, they're going to be still massive, right?
Germany, definitely.
Yeah, Germany. But again, if you want their top 5 cities, we've got Mexico City, Sao Paulo, Santiago, London, and Sydney. Those are the top 5, not even in America. But I guess, looking at those CD sales, it's definitely Americans driving those big CD sales. But on streaming, I'm guessing it is more likely a new generation of people discovering it. Even though older people do have Spotify, but still.
Well, I think one of their biggest concerts, they've got a DVD office in Argentina, so a lot of South Americans do like the classic rock bands, don't they?
Absolutely. And Fran, I mean, did you watch any AC/DC documentaries before?
I watched Behind the Music.
Oh, okay.
There isn't actually... I thought you think a band like this would have like a proper, like, massive one, but yeah, Behind the Music from like 2020. But a lot of it was discussing, like, I couldn't find this anywhere, but they seem to concentrate on Richard Ramirez, the serial killer.
Oh, why?
Because after one death, he left behind an AC/DC cap. And then they obviously the press looked into the back catalogue and discovered a song called The Night Prowler.
Okay.
And then they that meant that's why he's a killer, because he listened to that song. And then Angus goes, "Oh no, that's about me sneaking into my girlfriend's room when I was a 14-year-old."
I mean, I don't have it written down, but there is an AC/DC quote where I think when they were asked about their lyrics, especially kind of if they're misogynist, they're like, we basically don't give a shit. Like, that's not the main point. The main point is the riffs or something like that. But and
then it's one of those songs in the 80s that got banned by the women's, whatever it was.
Oh,
the same. That Myla song when they list out all these bands used to be banned from the radio, like Duran Duran,
yes,
and David Bowie,
Duran.
AC/DC, and then that's when they worked out if AC/DC could mean the Antichrist Devil's Child.
But speaking of Richard Ramirez, that is also the title of the only Sun Kill Moon song that I like. Do you know the song Richard Ramirez Died Today of Natural Causes?
I've not heard that.
Like, he's a cunt, Mark Kozolek, he is, and I'm glad that I discovered that song before I found out that he's a cunt. But it is a very catchy song where that is literally the opening line, and then there's this kind of acoustic guitar riff. It's a good song, but he remains a cunt. Yeah.
And so does Richard Ramirez.
Yeah, absolutely. Segue.
Moving on to you. I think you might know this. Are you a fan of School of Rock? There we go. So yes, the first time I heard it was School of Rock. I thought it was a Led Zeppelin song when they did it, because obviously.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. Actually. Well, I guess he is wearing a school uniform, isn't he? which is a
Ah,
giveaway.
yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, Long Way to the Top from 1976 TNT, and Bon Scott thought that it would work with some bagpipes, so he went and bought bagpipes. He had never played it in his life, and then taught himself the bagpipes to play the song.
Really?
And yeah, and Brian refuses to sing this because it's Bond's song, but it's his baby. So yeah, AC/DC don't play this anymore, and yeah, it's alright in it, but yeah, I just smile because I think of School of Rock.
Same.
Each time.
I've written like before School of Rock. It's like, okay, I like the guitar riff and how the chorus breaks down. Whoa, wasn't expecting bagpipes. After School of Rock, yeah, man, the closing song, woo! But it is an undeniably catchy song. I think it's got one of the best choruses. Like it is quite satisfying to go. It's a long way to the top, baby. You know, I won't continue.
So yeah, so before Korn, AC/DC were putting bagpipes into rock music, guys.
There we go. No, it's a good song, but yeah, would I enjoy it so much if it wasn't for School of Rock? I don't know.
Exactly, yeah, I think that's a better version. And then I thought, why not have a bit of fun?
Yeah.
And, what's more fun than some big balls? So from Dirty Deeds 1976, we have a song called Big Balls, and it has Bond singing in a posh English accent about having his cocktail ball. There's a lot of wordplay about balls. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
So it is what it is.
But I would argue the lyrics are even trans-inclusive because he says, "I've got big balls, and they're such big balls, dirty big balls, and he's got big balls, and she's got big balls, but we've got the biggest balls of them all." Fair play.
We love big balls.
We love big balls. Yeah, I the shortest song on your playlist, the funniest. It ends quite abruptly, which is a shame because the guitars start going a bit woozy and weird. And I would have enjoyed a bit more of that, a bit less straightforward rock and roll. But what really surprised me, his vocals sound exactly like the American indie band Louis XIV. Do you know them?
Oh, really? I remember from 2005.
Like Finding Out True Love Is Blind is their biggest song. But they have another song that my mind has gone called Guilt by Association. That's it. Listen to Guilt by Association and then listen to Big Balls. And you see, and you know that thing when you think like, oh, maybe he wasn't as original as I thought. That's what I felt after listening to this. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I'm not going to listen to it all the time, but it's very good.
Well, I mean, I didn't have time to do a Chris Webb and listen to all 17 albums, but so I wanted to try and find something which wasn't obvious. I mean, I can't hear any jazz fusion tracks,
No.
But yeah, this seemed to stand up. So I thought, yeah, why not mix up a little bit with some big
choice.
balls? And then we go on to another classic track from their biggest album, Back is Black, which is You Shook Me All Night Long, which again I always heard. I never really thought it was AC/DC. So I thought it could be like Chicago or Foreigner or any other band like that. Yeah. It's got that. It's the most radio friendly. It doesn't really. It doesn't. There's no ferocious dirty riffs. It's pretty much clean, isn't it? Really, and I didn't know it was such a big hit. And if you look on YouTube and Spotify, Jesus Christ, this gets played a lot.
A lot, yeah, and I think it's such a boring, annoying song. I think I enjoy the allusions in the lyrics, but that's it. Although I didn't realise that this is the song that Veruca Salt named their album American Thighs afterwards.
Oh,
so
really?
I was listening to it and it's like American Thighs, and I was like, hang on a minute, that's quite a standout line, and that is a very enjoyable Veruca Salt album. And I was like, that's quite funny that a kind of, again, sort of, I guess, more feministy or female 90s American band named their album after this, quite tongue-in-cheek. So I enjoyed that fact, but that's about it.
Although there's some controversy, people say that this was actually a Bon Scott lyric from 1976, which they haven't credited him on. But surely they're not going to fuck him over on the album based on his death, his passing, are they really?
I don't know. It depends on the arrangements for the estate are, right? Like, if it would... I mean, I don't know if he had a wife or family. If they didn't, and that means he's not getting a cut of the royalties, or his family aren't, then you have a problem. Right?
Yeah, but I can't imagine the Youngs doing that, because they literally asked permission to even continue the band. So it'd be very odd if they would then fuck him over for one song.
I know nothing about them, so who knows? So hopefully you're not assholes.
For Youngs.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking one of them is dead, but yeah.
Surely by now we'd hear.
Yeah, well, you'd hope.
If they'd done an Anthony Kiedis.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I then tried to check out what other songs they had after the Behemoth album, and I believe Hate Seeker was their first top 20 for a while from 1989. You mentioned Brian's vocals. he sings, and I think you know the lyrics, but when you listen, he does squawks, and I can't actually hear what he's saying. So I think he's singing like. I think in my head, I think, oh yeah, he's singing like normally. Then when I try and actually listen to lyrics, no, he's just making inaudible squawks, and then sings the chorus. And this, I think, is one of his occasions. I guess it's probably about his dick.
I actually didn't look up the lyrics for this one.
Did you?
So tell me, what's your theory?
I mean, it's a lot of things like heat seeker, missiles. In the video, Angus Young comes out of a missile and plays a guitar solo. It's a bit status quo.
Right. Okay. Dad rock continues.
It is a bit. I didn't love it, but I thought, I'd cherry pick a couple of songs past their peak. What are your thoughts?
When it starts, it's really quiet, and I was like, "Oh my god, do we finally have something a little bit different?" But no, it quickly goes into I think this was one of my least favorites. I thought it was totally forgettable. There's a kind of driving guitar riff, and the ending, I've put a flourished. I mean, it's kind of flourishing. It's quite interesting. But yeah, I've written, why the hell is his voice so low down in the mix? After complaining about the screaming, but I don't know what's going on there. It's really bizarre. It makes the song worse. I think it being so low in the mix.
Yeah, and he continues that with Big Gun. Apart from singing Big Gun, I never know I can't hear what he's saying with his squawking vocal. This for me was probably one of the only AC/DC songs I knew.
Really?
Because it's from the Arnold Schwarzenegger film Last Action Hero, and this video has Arnold in it, dressed up as a schoolboy doing the dance.
Very nice.
So yeah, this is played a lot. Again, I think this might be about dicks as well.
I've written, is it about a word jumble about film and TV? Because it's like, right on the radio, pictures on the TV, Invader Man may take what he can, shoot out on the silver screen, blah de blah, and then there's more like you're shooting up Hollywood, Snakes Alive with a 45. I was like, is that Snakes on a Plane? Was that out by then? I don't know.
No.
I actually quite enjoyed this song, despite the squealing, as I wrote, because it teases again, like there's a bit of restraint as seen in other song, and again there's an arpeggiated guitar riff which I quite enjoyed. So I think with a bit less screaming and a fewer guitar solos, this would be a really, really good song.
Fun fact: the bassist from System of a Down, Down, Chavo, is in the video.
Oh, very nice.
There we go, his first ever appearance. But yeah, I think this is Rick Rubin. This is only
maybe
on the soundtrack.
That's how they hooked up, because obviously Rick Rubin produced a lot of System stuff, I think.
But yeah, this is only on the soundtrack, so you can't get this on any albums by the band. And then I thought I'd finish with their most recent single. Mm-hmm. For Grammy-nominated, Shot in the Dark from Power Up in 2020, with Stevie replacing Malcolm. It's AC/DC. It's totally fine. I don't know. Is it a Grammy because they're still going?
Honestly,
like well done.
I've made my feelings about the Grammys clear. When I saw that, I did roll my eyes, and I roll my eyes again at you now. Yeah, this album sold 1.4 million copies. I didn't know it existed, and I'm surprised that it sold so much, especially in 2020. And I think the one good thing about it is the nice harmonies, actually. And I was like, actually, AC/DC with a bit more harmony would have been a bit more interesting. But on the one hand, I'm like, this is quite derivative. On the other hand, I'm like, it is kind of impressive that they're still making songs that sound so AC/DC over 40 years later. And again, just the fact that it's similar, like, I need a pick me up, a rolling thunder truck, I need a shot of you, a tattooed lady wild. I was like, oh, bloody hell. Like, they do, like, bands that are not American. We've been here before. We've been here with Dire Straits and with Rolling Stones. Like, they love singing about going with my car and a lady and a gun, and you're just like, oh, okay, fine, we get it, fine. And a long night pumping. You got the right position, the heat of transmission. Yeah. But yeah, again, I have to say, I think they are an impressive band. They were so productive in the 70s and 80s. Kind of. Was it like 5 years in a row they released albums? And they might have even had multiple albums in the same year. And I think the biggest gap has maybe been 5 years or something between albums. I mean, you've got to hand it to them to keep going as much as they have. But I think that given those absolutely ridiculous stats and how many albums and records they've sold, I don't quite understand it. And that's why, for me, of course, they are overrated.
But I guess one thing I did notice is for bands who are that successful, fuck all about any members. Like, I never know anything about the Youngs. You can't really. I don't know much about them at all.
Given that their biggest album was in 1980, they didn't need. I mean, the fact that the stat that I gave about they sold so many records in 2007, despite not having released music in ages, it's like they built a big enough fan base, and they built a big enough, I guess, older fan base that isn't maybe so much on social media, etc., that it's like, I don't know. They're on the newsletters, they're on the forums. Where are they? You know, all you need to know is that a new album's coming out and you're going to buy it, right? So, yeah,
but that's interesting. Obviously, I mean, like I said, I've not heard all of their songs, but it seems like they don't really write about anything particular, apart from like power and partying and so I don't know what the politics are, so it's quite weird that a band like that haven't fucked up massively by now by doing a song for Trump or something. But
yes.
Well, yeah, so I'll have to applaud them for that. But it's perfectly fine, but I'm never going to put on an AC/DC playlist. So for me, Overrated. Sorry guys.
I think I do have Back in Black on one of my mixed CDs from the early 2000s. Because I guess when I discovered it wasn't being played that much in the early 2000s. And yeah, definitely the songs that I saved from the list are Let There Be Rock and Big Gun. I'm sure there's more out there, but there has to be with such a back catalogue. And they are a rock band. They've got the blues influence. They've got the metal influence. I can get on board with stuff like that. But yeah, it really, it's just a lot of screaming. Too many guitar solos. Too many riffs for me to handle. A girl can only handle so many riffs. That's maybe why they don't have as many female fans. Maybe it's one to catch live, right? To sing along to.
Maybe not anymore. I mean, I like him. Yeah, I mean, a guy in the 70s in a school uniform. It's a bit. Yeah,
it's a bit straight. Yeah. Like on the one hand, fair play on the branding is what I thought. Like AC/DC, catchy.
The logo's
brilliant, so visual, and the schoolboy and shout out to their sister Margaret. That's what it seems. It was her suggestion and her inspiration. And I remember reading that she was really into music as well. I think they were quite a musical family.
Yeah, definitely.
So fair play to the lads. Fair play to the lads. Only minimal sexist lyrics, and I wish you well in your latter years.
But, if there's another album, I probably will be giving it a miss.
Yeah, but I mean, the reviews for their latest album were really good. Even though you felt that in part it was because it was 2020 and it was just what it is what we need, a band from the past. But still, I'm a rock fan. I guess I'm not so much a dad rock fan, but just the level of adoration when so many of the songs sound the same baffles me a little bit.
But see, I was thinking Guns N' Roses, you still see kids into. I've never seen anyone who's young into AC/DC.
True.
But AC/DC was only 6 or 7
I feel
years
like
before Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses and Iron Maiden are the two most successful. Let's put our logo on t-shirts at H&M bands. So I feel like I see people who are wearing those t-shirts more than. And I don't want to get all name 3 songs, but I think again the marketing is part of it, right? Whereas AC/DC actually would be a very good logo and a very simple logo to put on a t-shirt, but I haven't seen it at H&M personally.
Maybe we need to have that power ballad.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the playlist did not let up. Because I was thinking, right, what order do I do this in? And in the end, I did it yesterday because I was like, I think now I'm in a mind frame to handle this much. I mean, you literally warned me, didn't you? You literally said, watch out for rock or whatever it was when you say, oh, be careful, there will be rock, is what you said to me. And I'm glad that you warned me. But yeah, a bit too much.
Hello, this is a promo for a podcast about a playlist.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's called Playlist. Yeah. My name's Mike Lash, former actor, former comedian, former creative, former cool dude. This is
Craig Mitchell, former musician, former art student, current cool dude.
We've created a playlist, a fucking brilliant playlist.
The best playlist ever, to the point where we spoke to each other about how good the playlist is, and that we wanted to be the people at a party who's putting on the music and only putting on a few seconds of the music before changing the song, because everyone loves those guys at a party.
That's us. So each week we have a guest and they have to choose one song to define them as a human person. One song for me, Mike Lash, to sing right at them.
And then, because Mike is not the best person in his family, we've incorporated his mum to give her insight into each song, which will maybe help the guest to define themselves as a person.
But really, we probably shouldn't get bogged down in the format of the podcast. It's really heavily edited, so it's not actually that boring. It's quite short, so I really think you'll like it. Kerry's kids are home, so it's probably the end of this promo.
It is. What was it? www.playtheshare.com, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Underrated.
So I've picked another Sydney-based band. I checked. They did form in Sydney, AC/DC. The Vines. So they're obviously not a small band, right? They had some fame in the early 2000s. But I really want to make the case that they're underrated and confined to that time unfairly, right? I mean, so I definitely got into them at the beginning because Craig Nicholls has this kind of, androgynous, scruffy skater style, which was definitely a reason I really liked them. But they had detractors from the beginning, so I only just found this out, but Dave Grohl apparently said Avril Lavigne's Skater Boy is more challenging than Get Free, which I was like, burn! Especially given that on their first album they ended up working with Jay Schnapp, who worked with Foo Fighters. I mean, I wonder if Dave revised his opinion. But yeah, they were called kind of retro and a Kurt Cobain wannabe. But I think, again, it's a bit simplistic. And when I was doing the research for this band, I was surprised that they had so many monthly listens on Spotify, 1.5 million. But Get Free is by far the most popular song, 60 million, and the next one is Ride, which has 16. And even Out of the Way from the same album only has 6 million. So again, I really think they're kind of confined to this certain time. And kind of reading about their history. So they formed in 1994. So that's way before they broke in 2001. So the vocalist and lead guitarist Craig Nicholls met bass guitarist Patrick Matthews in a McDonald's in a suburb of Sydney. And so, between 94 and 2000, they gigged infrequently, but quite unknown. But, by 2001, they had over 30 songs, and they put out a first single, Factory, as a limited 7-inch. And that became NME's single from the week in November 2001, and from that point on the rise was kind of exponential. So Craig happened to meet the president of Capitol, who from his personality, Andy Slater, signed like a worldwide distribution deal with them. They appeared on the cover of NME, and then very famously they appeared on the cover of Rolling Stone in October 2002, the first band to do so since Men at Work in 1983. Fact, fans. And it's this famous cover where Craig Nicholls is being held back by the rest of the band, and it says "Ruck is back, meet the Vines," and it says the Strokes, the Hives, the White Stripes. And I didn't realize that the Arctic Monkeys said that if it wasn't for the Vines, they probably wouldn't have formed. And there's a really fantastic podcast called The Album Club. It's an Australian podcast, and there's a 2-part interview with Patrick Matthews, who's the bassist, talking about the Rolling Stone cover and how, again, I think it was kind of a fluke that I think it was the Strokes were meant to do it, but the Vines showed up and that's why they did it. So it's very interesting they slogged it out for so long, and then suddenly they had this meteoric rise to fame in the US where their debut album got to 11. Imagine an unknown band from Australia, which sold 1.5 million copies worldwide. Brackets, that's just under half the entire number of CDs sold in Australia in 2020. More facts. And then so they had this meteoric rise to fame. I saw them playing live on Jules Holland. They had this famously chaotic slot on The Late Show with David Letterman, which you watched, right, Fran, before the show. But after the release of their second album, it just didn't do as well. And not long after, or maybe actually I don't know the exact timing, but the bassist Patrick Matthews left after this quite shambolic gig. And I really like Winning Days. One of my favorite songs of all time comes from there. And I think they've continued producing good music, and they haven't really had a look in. And I think a lot of that is to do with kind of Craig Nicholls' state. So not long after I think Patrick Matthews left, he was diagnosed with Asperger's, and one of the Vines managers said that the guy who diagnosed Craig said his life consisted pretty much of the worst things you could do for someone in his condition. Being in a different place every day, meeting new people, just having everything be totally unstructured. Things went downhill very quickly. And I think, Craig Nicholls has continued having kind of issues because he was arrested for assaulting his parents in 2012. So I don't know, I think such a young band being put in the spotlight like that with someone like him, I think it really burnt him out. And I've been reading a lot of kind of media analysis of how they kind of spoke about him, and it is very like 2000s unsensitive. You know, Rolling Stone said Craig Nicholls has all the makings of a rock star: good looks, great songs, serious mental problems. like that's a good thing. Yeah, you mentioned before the record, so NME, after their fourth album, Melodia, they issued an apology and they said, the Vines were never the saviors of rock and roll we said they'd be. We'd hoped for a return, however slight to highly evolved. We hoped in vain. And there's this big article in Double J, which is right up my street, because it's like, why the Vines need, you know, like a reckoning. And he says, like, it just typifies a lot of how the media treated the Vines once business stopped booming. And there's this article from The Guardian in 2004 where it's literally like, who's going to be next to die? Is it going to be Craig Nicholls, Pete Doherty, or Courtney Love? So I think, you know, people didn't talk about mental health issues in the same way. People, you know, didn't get him the help that he needed. And I think it kind of ruined his mental state. But the good thing is he does seem to be doing better these days. And in 2014, he did an interview saying, like, yeah, I rarely socialize. I don't think he uses many computers or smartphones or anything. And he says, like, living like a kid and music is what saved me. So I'm glad that he's doing better. But listening to all of their albums, which I mostly have apart from the latest one, there's always good music there. And the playlist that I put together for you, so there's only kind of 4 songs from the bigger era. Most of them are 2006 onwards. And I just think, unlike AC/DC, they play with so many different varieties of rock and mesh so many different varieties in rock in a way that I don't think any other band does. Like, on Wikipedia, they classify Highly Evolved as alternative rock, garage punk, post-punk revival, post-grunge, neo-psychedelia. And I'm like, yeah, they do. And there's this other quote by a writer which says, like, the Vines never sound weighed down by all the influences they include in their music. It's as if they're so excited by everything they hear, they can't help but recombine it in unique ways. So I think underrated, long overdue in being discovered by TikTok teens. Fran, what do you think about the Vines?
So, yeah, I was around in 2002. I can't speak English. 2002. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so it's been 20 years. Mm-hmm. So you think they'd be, you know, going for that dollar. I
think when Highly Evolved turned 15, they kind of reissued a few things, but
it's a weird. Yeah, you get some odd. Like we're now getting people doing 21st anniversary. Yeah, what the fuck's that? What's 21st?
No. Multiples of 5 only,
Keep
please.
It around. Yeah, unbelievable. So I unfortunately I did not like the Vines when they came out, mainly because of his personality. Like I saw the interviews. And
I was thinking, this is the anti-Fran. This is not like a man in makeup looking like. Ooh, I was like, this is scruffy skater boy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think obviously I didn't know his mental state back in those days. So you just saw a guy who seemed really over the top, and I remember seeing Letterman back in 2002. Yeah, and people were saying that, you know, he was
crazy,
weird in interviews, and you didn't know what's going to happen. He's trying too hard to be Kurt Cobain. Even when he sang, he kind of looked a bit like Tom York by doing like.
Well, do you want the fact that I didn't know until recently?
Go on.
So the Rolling Stone cover. So Rob Sheffield, who I think is he's the writer, he said, this was a cover shoot where we had to airbrush eyeballs into Craig Nicholls' eyelids because he was incapable of opening them for the photo shoot. So the cover is the other 3 members of the Vines holding him upright while he makes a dazed expression. Ruck is back. Yes, it was. So there we go.
And any reason why he could?
I think Asperger's, no, because isn't it that like with a lot of people with autism or on the autism spectrum have difficulty making eye contact? Like I think it is related to that. Like when you see him singing, like he is so rarely looking forward. You know, he's looking up. He just wants to look away from people. I think that's what it is. Like,
do you know, was he taking drugs to get over the social nerves?
They must have. Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think acid and weed, from what I've seen. I mean, they have a song called Mary Jane on Highly Evolved. But
I don't know if this is my memory, but I think he said that he only ate McDonald's on his first American tour. Yeah. But for a guy who worked there, that is some loyalty to the brand McDonald's. You know, I remember hearing "Get Free" constantly, and I think it was in like films. Was it in Charlie's Angels?
I don't know.
I think it was in adverts constantly, and that was kind of the only song I remember hearing. And then once upon a time, I heard a song called "Homesick" on MTV2, and I thought this is fucking brilliant, and I love Homesick. Sadly omitted from this
But
playlist.
there's a similar one, I would argue.
Oh yeah. So that's my favourite song off the debut album,
and very different, right? Because it is a ballad.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously I knew Ride, and that's pretty much.
Okay, good. So you knew one song off this list, maybe?
Oh yeah. So
Okay,
that's it.
good.
Yeah, one song.
Okay, well, yeah, let's leave it at that then. So, I mean, yeah, that was it. I have no idea at all what you think of this playlist, and I was like, this could really go either way. So that's why I've tried to make it as varied as possible. But it's in chronological order, I think, to also show the evolution. So, my first pick is an album cut from Highly Evolved called Ain't No Room. I think it's got a great bass hook, and I like the guitar solos here, and the ending where it kind of gets crazy with the shouting. It's a catchy rock and roll song that builds, and yeah, I really like it, especially the bass. I think you might find it a bit repetitive, but I don't know. What do you think?
Ding ding ding. So I put at first, I enjoyed the hypnotic bending guitar riff, but after a while it kind of felt like a wasp stuck in my head. It's a bit too much. The lyrics, forget it now, forget it then. I don't really know. I guess it's just him not liking the city.
But it looks so pretty.
But it does look pretty. Yeah, lyrically, he doesn't really say much about hating. Well, there's a lot of nihilism. But yeah, I had never heard a song before. It's perfectly fine. I didn't hate it, but I think I've heard it maybe 3 or 4 times, and yeah, that repeated bendy riff gets a bit annoying after a while, unfortunately.
Yeah, I really like the bass when it breaks down and do no 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 do no 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 no. And yeah, I don't mind it being repetitive because I enjoy it, and I think because it kind of goes straight in, it's like boom, no 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 no. But yeah, again.
So is he the only member of the band now? Because Wikipedia says he's the only person left.
So he's the only permanent member, although he did manage to get the original lineup together for a tour with Jet, I think in 2018. But yeah, he is the main songwriter. Like there's maybe like a song here and the song on the next album with Patrick Matthews is co-written, but he is the main songwriter, which is impressive. But yeah, I could have put so many other songs from that, because do you know Mary Jane or 1969?
No.
Okay, well, so Mary Jane is much more psychedelic, and actually so is 1969, but I thought let's go for a bit of rock and roll. Maybe I had AC/DC on the mind, but there we go. Next pick, quite different, and I hope you're prepared for this one. Miss Jackson. There used to be this TV show called Recovered, which was on BBC Choice, presented by Dermot O'Leary, and it was basically kind of, I guess, like a live lounge, or like a version on Triple J where a band would play a song of theirs and then a cover version. And it was a very interesting show because it had people like Gabrielle and Atomic Kitten, but also 80s Matchbox and In Me. So I really recommend checking out clips from the show. I saw In Me's version of Creep today, and I think I was just blown away by this cover because it's such a reimagining of the song, and covering a hip hop song in a time where, like, the scenes were very separate, and acknowledging that it's a good song, I thought was genius. And they have really made it their own. It blends their sounds perfectly. There's this kind of pensive acoustic guitar at the beginning, but then some rocky guitar and feedback comes back in. And I think I sent you, the recorded version, but the live version is even better. He sings, "I'm sorry, Miss Jackson," and it just, very catchy. And he sings the last verse kind of a beat off, and it's just, I love it. I think it's very interesting. Fran?
I swear this was on a compilation CD as well. But yeah, I love that program. I think Hell's for Heroes do a good version of Boys Don't Cry by The Cure. And yeah, I do love this cover. It's kind of a bit Oasis via Australia. His voice works when it's more restrained. I forgot all about this. So thank you for reintroducing Miss Jackson, the Divines version.
I'm glad.
But yeah, I remember at university everyone was going on about this. It must have been in a compilation because someone had it on a CD.
Well, I think I downloaded the recovered version off Kazaa. So the version that I had on my music library for ages, it had the kind of audience at the beginning and everything. So I kind of prefer that to the recorded one. But I think what the recorded one has that the live one doesn't is him harmonizing with himself, which I'm going to bang on about a lot here. And I think, again, that's what he does kind of uniquely. But yeah,
it's nice to hear the word Kazaa.
Oh yeah, every now and again someone said Soulseek, and I was like, oh yeah, of course, Soulseek. Next song. So No Biggie, Fran, but this is my favorite rock ballad of all time. It's it's Autumn Shade 2 from Winning Days. I think it's the most beautiful male harmonization I've ever heard. The guitars, bass and drums for most of it are so sparse, and they frame his voice perfectly. I quite like the instrumental ending with some bird song. I think it's wistful, beautiful, nostalgic.
So I put down here Homesick Part 2.
Yeah, similar. But I have Homesick is not one of my favorites.
Piano.
Yeah,
Really?
I think Homesick is too slow. The piano is too ploddy for me. Whereas this, with the delicate guitar, I much prefer.
I thought the guitar sounds a bit like Where's My Mind by the Pixies.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
I put it's pleasant and I enjoyed it. Not unexpected, but someone on YouTube says this is the best song of the past 25 years. So I believe it must be Babs.
No. It's not the best song, but it's my favorite rock ballad. It moves me so much, and I have to say, like, I'd never really paid attention at all to Vine's lyrics before, and I didn't really know what he was saying here. But one of the things that I quite like, and it will keep coming back, so just before it kind of changes into, I guess, the chorus, he says, "I'm succeeding to speak like I'm fucking mad." And I think no one uses fucking as an interjector, I don't know what it is, better than the Vines. I think the fact that you have this, like, beautiful, delicate guitar and vocals and harmonies, and then he's going fucking mad. Again, I really think the Vines bring both, the pleasant and the loud together very well.
I watched an interview from like 2014, and they're doing a gig in a church for like some sort of Russian vodka.
Right. Okay.
And he said that I will remove all of the swear words. Mike, that's going to be a lot. Craig.
Yeah, because I guess they don't swear all the time, but they swear pretty consistently.
Yeah. And we've got a song coming up later on. This is basically the chorus.
Well, yes, that is the next pick. It is Fuck the World. So, I mean, this is the same album, total gear shift. And this is my go-to angry song. I think maybe just because it's called Fuck the World. When I'm angry, I'm like, all right, let's go and listen to Craig Nicholls shouting Fuck the World. And yeah, I mean, that bass intro. And then, yeah, the drums and screaming come in. Love it. And I think putting together this playlist and, reflecting on why I like the Vine so much, I don't think I'd realised how much I loved Craig's guitar playing, because I love Patrick's bass so much, and obviously Craig's vocals are so beautiful, but I think a lot of the reason why I like the Vine sound is the guitar, and I guess, the comparisons to Nirvana there, he is playing very often kind of rhythm and lead guitar, because there is another guitarist, but they're often playing it like acoustic guitar, and yeah, it's not all, the electric guitar does both. So this song is 3.41 minutes long, and there's so many different sections. There's like this middle 8 before the bass centric breakdown, and then crazy guitars, the drums drag us back to reality, and even the Fuck the World Don't section with this kind of swirling, almost kind of synth distortion before the final chorus, which has extra streaming. I love it. And I've written, unlike AC/DC, I like Craig Nicholls screaming because it's way more controlled and in much better juxtaposition to the rest of the instruments. What did you think?
Well, I said lyrically, it's kind of, angsty 13-year-old writing on a pencil case, fuck the world.
Life was better before it was smaller, and mine's computer will fuck the world up.
But I think he said, I definitely think the world's a good place, but maybe it could be a bit better if we didn't kill animals. Yeah, I think it sounds a bit like Black Rebel Motorcycle Club meets Guns N' Roses. That bass for me is very Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, and it's got some Guns N' Roses sort of sounds to it.
You're totally correct, actually. Like Stop by Black Rebel Motorcycle Club.
Yeah. Dun 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 dun, and sort of guitars a bit swelling. But I just struggle with the chorus a bit. Unfortunately, someone saying "fuck the world" is a bit.
Fran, honestly, next time you're really angry, put on this song. But it's funny you say Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, because I was watching their performance on Jules Holland, and in one of them, he's wearing a white T-shirt with loads of bands written on it, including Muse with the little, with the logo, the lines, and BRMC. So clearly fans.
Yeah, then moving on to, is it Nothing's
From
Coming?
Vision Valley, yes. This immediately starts. You're like, all right, okay, we're here. And I think it's kind of a natural progression from the last two albums, like a perfect 2-minute garage rock song, but it has something else, because again, he's harmonizing with himself, and I really like how his voice works with the crunchy guitars. Once again, using fucking to emphasize the final line. And so obviously Patrick's left now, and I do think Patrick is an extremely underrated bassist, and I don't think that from now on the bass sounds as strong, but the guitar's made up for it, and I really like the sort of spooky guitar solo just before the end, and there's some sort of spooky space synths in the verses, which is kind of a recurring theme. So for me, if you liked, Get Free and the other, Out of the Way, the kind of choppier songs, I don't see why you wouldn't like this one. It's a continuation for me.
Yeah, I put I think that I've not heard this because the critics hated it.
Oh my god, so much.
I think they would complete dismiss because I think this would have been if this was on the first album, it should have been a single. I like the nice change to the chorus. It doesn't overstate its welcome. But I guess this wasn't the comeback single they hoped.
Someone played this to you and said this was on Highly Evolved. You could believe it, right?
Yeah, so when the enemy is sort of saying that,
I do think like it's I don't know. I think it's lazy, build them up to tear them down music journalism. Because I saw the reviews, which was like, in some songs he sounds like a bored Kurt Cobain, in some songs he sounds like a bored Liam Gallagher. And it's like, Kurt Cobain and Liam Gallagher didn't fucking harmonize like this. Like, it's just his attitude. I don't think it is his delivery, and makes me angry, Fran.
I guess the Kurt thing is what we're talking later on, but I guess it's the fact that he does a lot of quiet, loud,
quiet.
Yeah. But that wasn't just Nirvana doing that. I think Dave, in that quote you mentioned earlier about Dave Grohl, he said in that interview he mentions, "Are you okay with him doing the Nirvana thing?" Because I'm perfectly fine with that.
Oh right,
but,
okay.
But he still thinks like Get Free to a shit song. They got dropped, didn't they, after this album? So I guess the record company after the second album completely dismissed them, and I guess they didn't even bother.
I think by this point he'd been,
the
bassist had left. He'd been diagnosed with Asperger's. So I guess. I think, because someone says like, oh, the vines are so polished, so shiny by Capitol. So I'm thinking, did Capitol kind of pressure them to put out another album to kind of still try and capitalize on it? I don't know.
But as a guy who went to festivals every year, I never saw the Vines on any festival lineups. I maybe because of his condition meant he couldn't tour.
Yeah,
much.
I think
it's probably
every album since then. I mean, it even says like with limited touring and press engagements, because he literally said very early on, he's like, I so much prefer being in the studio than playing live. And I'm guessing if you don't like socializing, touring and having to do press engagements must be like really anathema to you. So.
Yeah, and this is kind of pre-social media, so it's hard to get the music out there, I guess. So this is kind of why I think I read that this album only sold 7,800 copies in America.
In America, I have one of them.
Yeah. There you go.
I have 3 of their albums.
And that is such a fucking drop. So they kind of not publicized it at all to sell that little amount of albums.
Yeah, I do maintain that a lot of it is down to his public persona, because like you said, you were put off by them. Like, it put you off so much that you didn't even consider their music, even though it might have maybe been a bit your thing.
But when you got people saying it's the best band of all time,
and then being
it's like, really? yeah. I mean, it's the same with the Strokes. One year the Strokes are the best band of all time and changing, then the next year it's the Vines the best band of all time. It's like, come on,
way
guys,
the Strokes, way better.
Let's relax before we announce bands as being the best. band
that's
of all time.
what the British music press do, right? I really think
it did.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of faded away in the past 10 years.
You would hope. So my next kind of 2 songs are still from this album. I think it's kind of just make the point that it's got some good songs. So 1 minute 18, Gross Out. And basically this song oscillates between punky shouting, melody and harmonizing, ends with some shouting. It's short, it's good, it's catchy.
So what happened was
once upon a time,
this song came on while I was at the gym last night, and I thought, fuck me, this sounds like King Adora.
Is that why you were posting about them?
And I then went down a King Adora rabbit hole for 2 hours.
I was going to ask you, because I've never heard of them. Who are they? Who are King Adora?
So King Adora came out in the end of the 90s as a kind of like a glam punk manics kind of band, eyeliner, feather boas, songs about fucking a policeman that lasted for a minute and a half. So I was living 2000 all over again last night, so thank you, Babs.
You are welcome. Still haven't told me what you think of the song.
Yeah. So the reason I thought King Adora had minute and a half tracks, very much like this. Although someone has just destroyed this for me because I did like the song a lot, and I thought, wow, this is a great track. And then someone said, oh, have you noticed this is exactly the same guitar riff as Even in His Youth by Nirvana?
I don't know that
it is.
song by Nirvana.
It's identical. It's a B-side. It's
shit.
identical.
Okay.
And I was like, oh,
Craig.
When people have been comparing to Nirvana, stay
Yeah.
clear of Nirvana.
Okay, well, I will hold judgment until I listen to it, but yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of ruined it for me,
I mean,
unfortunately.
I still think you can appreciate a song even if it sounds like another song. You don't respect it as much, maybe, but I mean, it's 1 minute 18. What's that in time?
Yeah, but it's a lot shorter from the next track.
Indeed. So yeah, I gave you some short songs, and then I gave you a beautiful rock ballad, which stands at 6:07. Yeah. So at the beginning, it's just Craig's voice and an acoustic guitar. Then more guitars come in, and when that happens, I've written like this is very similar accompaniments to Autumn Shade, Homesick, or Rainfall, which I think you would like as well from their second album, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Although there's a kind of a theremin sounding sound, and then again, I think it's building on their sound. This is a much more sophisticated song than any of the songs I've just mentioned. It has a flute. And it just, again, continually dies down, builds up, dies down. Craig's vocals aren't in there for very long. I enjoy the journey. I think it does sound like he's on a spaceship, on some kind of journey. I'm thinking, knowing you, that maybe this is because it isn't kind of a short song, it maybe fades out a bit for you. But I quite like the journey.
Yeah, it's unexpected prog rock. It's what really. It is kind of long. I listened to it maybe 3 or 4 times, and then I didn't skip it. But there's nothing really to grab. There's not really a hook in it, is there really?
What do you think of Craig's voice? Because I do think that, honestly, like 50% of my enjoyment of the Vines comes from his voice and him harmonising with himself, which, yeah, again, Patrick in the Album Club podcast, he's like, I don't think anyone does it as well as him, but if you don't think that... Then...
No, he's actually a better singer than I remember, to be fair. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess this is maybe good live. People were mentioning on the comments, but for me, it kind of just passed by, but it wasn't a bad time. It just nothing ever really sucked me into it, unfortunately. But it's interesting to hear that they can do this. I was not expecting prog rock on the playlist of the Vines.
But see, I would, because they've always had psychedelics. I guess maybe not on Winning Days, but on Highly Evolved, there's loads of psych and proggy songs, like the aforementioned 1969.
I've not heard Winning Days, but someone said that each song is a completely different style. Is that true?
Almost, but again, well, I mean, Autumn Shade 2 and Fuck the World are from that same album, right? So that is very different. No, not really. Like, not more than Highly Evolved, I would say.
Really? So is Ride their most Vine song on that album?
It is their most rocky Vine song, even though I would put Fuck the World in that category as well. But I think with the Vines, yes, if you take Get Free as the most Vine song ever, yes, but this is the point I'm trying to make. Like, the Vines are not just loud, rocky songs. They do psychedelia, they do prog, they do ballads. So, yeah, I think that's why I'm like, what is a Vine song? The Vine song is not, there's definitely elements, there's loud quiet and the harmonizing and crunchy guitars, but yeah, I really, I mean, Winning Days is not a perfect album. Like, the songs that I don't like, I really don't like. But the songs that are good are brilliant.
What is their best album?
I think Highly Evolved.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately. But they still have lots of good songs kind of throughout the years, as I have well proved.
Critically, all albums seem to get 3 stars. Is that true for the albums? Or
yeah, I think the Vines, when I listen to Vines albums post 2006, like, I always have to give them a bit of a go. Like, it takes me a bit longer to get into it, and sometimes there's songs that are quite annoying. So I put 3 songs from Vision Valley, which is good, but there are some songs there that are kind of annoying. So I don't think they've made. I think Winning Days and Highly Evolved are good albums, but I don't think they are an albums band. And I mean, how many songs does one of the albums has? Like 20 something songs, and I'm like, that is too many, guys.
Apparently, whilst they're mixing one album, they started to write another album, and they thought we'd put both together. And people are saying, you do not need 22 songs on this album, guys, at all.
Yeah, it's like you need an editor, right? Is the thing. But I mean, like, we talked about, so Rob Schnapp, was that his name? The guy
I think so.
So he did Highly Evolved, Winning Days, and Melodia. And yeah, it was quite interesting because I saw this video which said that, so when the Vines managers were scouting for producers, like, he loved it so much, he literally wrote an email where all he did was like repeat the band's name. He was like, the Vines, the Vines, the Vines, the Vines, Vines. He was really keen. But when he eventually got in the studio, like, Craig was super protective of the sound, and it took, like, it was tense and it took a while to build the trust. And yeah, they were like, oh yeah, it's great. Oh yeah, hang on, let me read again from Meet Me in the Bathroom if I can find it. But they were like, oh yeah, this guy who worked with like Beck and Elliott Smith, sure, let's go and do let's go and work with him again. Like the rise to fame was mad, how they went from this band slogging it about for years to suddenly writing it. But yeah, you can imagine Craig being the sole songwriter and everything else, that he would be quite protective, right?
Yeah, and I guess they aren't on the label. I think is it crowdfunded their albums these days. So
the definitely the later ones, yeah, definitely from the tens. Speaking of the tens, my next pick is Black Dragon from Future Primitive, which came out in 2011. I thought this was another evolution. There's this crazy loud beginning to this song with some new sounds. There's an effect on Craig's voice that we haven't really heard before, and I can't really tell what synths and crazy percussion it is apart from maybe a cowbell. And it's quite hard, and you think it finishes after 2 minutes, but then there's this kind of woozy instrumental section with some distortion and bleepy bloops, and then it kind of ends. I just think it's quite original, and I got some Queens of the Stone Age vibes from this song when listening today, which I hadn't really before. But yeah, I really love especially the kind of the loud bit and the instrumentation. But what did you think?
I said there's a lot of feedback. It's got a lot of energy and feedback, but where is it going? There seems to be a lot of ideas, but they don't really have a solution. I assume it's about heroin, maybe? Is it?
Probably, because it's like chasing a black dragon or something.
Yeah. I said a big fan of the guitar effect, but not the overall song.
Oh, what a shame. But I will give you then some facts about this album. So the lead track, Gimme Love, is the opening track of the In-Betweeners movie, which I hadn't realised. And the last song on this album is called STW, which is Screw the World, but it sounds absolutely nothing like Fuck the World. It's a psychedelic acoustic ballad, which ends with a drums machine and arpeggiated synths. So you might be interested in that a bit more.
Yeah, they do still, for a band who aren't as popular as they were, they still appear on soundtracks and computer games. So
I mean, I'm guessing, unfortunately, they're probably cheaper now, but have good songs, right? So, yeah.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
And my last two picks are from Wicked Nature from 2014, which is their second to last album. The first one is Metal Zone. Did you watch the music video to this, by the way?
I did. I'm not a fan of his hair.
His hair. Do you know who he reminded me of D'Antwoord when he came on in kind of black and white with the, what's her name, Yolandi Visser. I was like, oh, that's quite terrifying. So yeah, the song starts and it's this like psychedelic voice, Craig going and there's a kind of funky guitar and a funky bass, but then it turns into a fucking noise rock and roll song. As Tefo96 said on YouTube, finally a rock band that doesn't change the electropop side, which is actually quite a good comment, because while I think, as I said, that they span a lot of rock genres, the synths and other things are few and far between, and yet they still manage to do a lot of different genres, which I enjoy. Again, love the screaming section contrasted with the quieter section, especially the drums, just before it ends quite unexpectedly, which is unusual for the Vines, kind of early, but that seems to happen a bit more. And I think this sounds like one of my favourite Australian bands of the moment, something that DZ Death Race could do. Again, like I think if you like that kind of rock, why is this song not bigger? Why is this not more known? Because it definitely is for a certain kind of rock fan, and I think it should have got more airplay.
Do we know what a Metal Zone is?
I don't know, but I think the chorus is stoned in my metal zone. I take rock and roll to get radical. So is it about music, the power of healing, or something? Who knows?
Or the cancel zone in the Crystal Maze. I'm sure there's no Crystal Maze fans in Belgium. So yeah, this is back to the kind of the trademark noisy, grungy era, maybe, of the debut album. I think it works perfectly fine. I assume this didn't really do much in the charts.
No, I don't think so.
No, not at all. I said, yeah, perfectly fine. This could be off the debut album.
I actually would disagree. with
But you've
that.
heard it a lot more than I have. But, on my 3 lessons, that's what I thought.
Because I think I don't know. I guess again, I'm guessing that when you think of the debut album, you think of Get Free and Out of the Way, right? That's it. Like that. That's not what all the songs sound like, and I think this is far rockier than the other songs that aren't like that. But
was this album more rockier? Or was it a complete mix?
Well, it's a mix again. I think with the Vines, it's always a mix. And yeah, I mean, the next song from it is quite different. I mean, we can segue into it already, unless there's
no, I'm all metal zoned out.
Your metal zoned out. Well, so like looking at the Spotify stats, actually, so the two songs, so Metal Zone and the other song I've picked is Killing the Planet, they've had 4.3 and 4.9 million plays on Spotify. So I think
that's quite a lot.
That is a reasonable amount for. And I mean, you look at the YouTube comments for Metal Zone, it's like, oh yeah, what a comeback. But as someone said, and again, I feel like they really like to beat Craig with a stick, but it's like, oh, every single Vines album since Winning Days has been a comeback album. But there definitely is kind of like oh wow, don't they sound great? Like, isn't, I think they're just happy that he's around and still making good music, which I think he is. But yeah, my final pick, Killing the Planet, tongue in cheek a little bit. Of course, I had to include a song about climate change. Not that the lyrics are particularly deep. I mean, he's talking about look at the earth and you can see that it's dying. We forget how we lived yesterday. I cannot see for the sight of the building or out to sea for the oil we are spilling. Okay, fine. Similar to his, like, the earth's great, I guess, apart from the fact we kill animals. But I picked it as well because it's quite a different sound. It's almost country-esque, especially on the lead guitar, and there's much less harmonizing. But I still think it's beautiful, catchy, and it works. And I think I wanted to end on this to really kind of drive the point home of, like, they have a lot of different guitar sounds and vocal melodies.
So yes, it was quite funny for a guy who worked at McDonald's to sing about to hate that we kill animals. So yeah, the bass reminds me of Come Together.
Okay, I have to. Well, they're huge Beatles fans. Huge Beatles fans.
And then later on in the song, it's kind of like a slow version of Heart Shaped Box.
Oh, I don't hear that really at all.
Dun, 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 yeah.
Okay, I have to listen to this again.
Please listen. Yeah. The second part when you hear the guitar comes in, like the arpeggio, it's the same. To me, it sounds like a slow version of Heart Shaped Box. But obviously, he's influenced by those bands, so it makes perfect sense. Yeah, again, an unexpected sound. Lyrically not great. Or again, like the Stranglers, they do not have good album covers at all.
Oh, I like Winning Days. Actually, and Highly Evolved.
But that cover on Spotify is completely different to the other cover.
Which one?
So my Winning Days have
yes,
cartoon faces.
Yeah. There's two. There's the cartoon faces, and then there's like the grey. I have cartoon faces, I think. I know. I like the cartoon faces. It won an ARIA award for best cover art. I have never met anyone who is as into the Vines as I am, and I know a lot of indie fans. I know a lot of rock fans, and yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I guess you've been saying what a lot of other people have been saying of, like, oh, like they wear their influences on their sleeve and that's a bad thing. Maybe because apart from Nirvana, maybe the influences they wear on their sleeve are not so familiar to me. It doesn't really bother me. But I don't know. I think Craig Nicholls is a genius and got thrown under the bus by the press, and I hope he does better, and I really recommend reading that Double J article called... Oh, yeah, so the article's called Why the Vines Deserve a Serious Real Appraisal They'll Never Get. Very strong. So yeah, I think I know what you're going to say, but what's your final conclusion? Over or underrated?
I wonder if they're more appreciated in Australia, because obviously doing some YouTube searching, they seem to still be interviewed a lot on Australian radio, Australian TV. I guess maybe because of his condition, he's not wanting to leave his country, and that's kind of hurt his career. You haven't seen them live, have you, Babs?
No, I think now that I've seen the Hives live, they are probably the band I am the band who are still alive that I am the saddest about not having seen. I would have loved to see them.
Obviously with lockdown, I think obviously he needs a bit of cash. I'm really surprised they're not going for a 2022. What the fuck am I talking about? The 20th anniversary of Highly Involved tour, because surely that makes sense. So yeah, then that would be a great way to see him live. I didn't really hate anything, but nothing really appealed to me, unfortunately.
But is it because I guess I didn't really know how you felt about kind of psychedelia and proggy.
No, I don't. I've got some highly pretentious albums with like. There's a band called Amusement Parks from Fire who have 14-minute tracks.
Right.
So I don't mind it.
I haven't forgotten Sea Power either at 15 minutes.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind a bit of the epic track. But yeah, that didn't bother me. But yeah, maybe the influences. Yeah, I feel like I don't want to feel like an old man saying, "Oh, but they're copying the bands of my era." But yeah, I can't really hear a Vine's pure sound.
Not even the harmonies.
No, I don't know. And even like Get Free, it sounds like other bands, unfortunately.
I think they're always compared to Pavement, which is still a mysterious band for me because every time I've heard Pavement, I've not liked them. So
yeah, not for me. But yeah, but I'm really happy that Craig is into Britpop. He loves Supergrass, loves Blur.
Did you hear the story about what happened when? Yeah.
At a party, didn't he go mad at a party?
He went mad at a party because the DJ played a Supergrass song and then threw a bucket of water over himself and something like that. Yeah, it's.
So yeah, it's got good taste in music.
I immediately liked Winning Days and Highly Evolved. Every other album since, I found it a bit difficult to get into, and it's so uneven that you kind of, you have to treat it more like a playlist than an album sometimes. So I feel like every year I kind of have to listen to Divines again and kind of note down the songs that I like. But yeah, I mean, I asked about what, do you like psychedelia and prog? Because I have to say, I'm not so au fait with it. And again, maybe that's why I like them so much, because they distilled it into something a bit shorter and a bit more accessible.
I did not know they had made 7 albums. Is it 7 albums now?
I think so, yeah.
And I was like, fuck me, because I had not heard of anything. I mean, I bought music magazines up until 2012 or 14. I never saw any reviews of Divines. That's why I said. That's why I feel like, yeah, you're correct. It is unfair because they get fuck all press.
They get fuck all press, and that's it. And it's so often framed around, isn't he troubled? And you're like, well, yes, he is, but in part he's troubled because of you. And I think, I don't know, similar people, it's like, oh, but he's a genius, and people don't think that about Craig. And it's like, he is one man writing all these songs. Like, he writes most of the songs. He's come up with this sound, and yeah, I think that they're very original and due a reckoning, or reappraisal. They're due a reappraisal. Join me on my quest, people of the internet, because no one I know in real life is clearly with me on this. But yeah.
Well, Rick Astley is now a loved artist. No one expected that. So who knows? In 10 years' time, Craig Nicholls will be playing with the coolest indie band.
So did you see him with the Killers?
Yeah, exactly, and that's a surprise because because they kind of were out at the same time. I guess 2004, that would have been contemporaries. So yeah, so it's nice that he's happy to still do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Brandon Flowers fan, but I will say that he's very good at kind of bringing people on board and talking about his influences, right? Like we've talked about him lovingly talking about the Pet Shop Boys at the Brit Awards, and it was really nice.
So is this the end of our Australian episode?
I think it is the end of our Australian episode, but I think there's definite fodder for a part 2.
It's a shame we can't do underrated part of a band's career, because NXS from 1980 to 1986.
Whatever we want.
That would be the pre-Kick era NXS. I think is fucking underrated, and I loved the albums before that.
What are the most famous songs from that era?
That's it. You wouldn't know because
they're not on the greatest
they were
hits.
not played. Yeah. Like if you buy the greatest hits of NXS, they may have one song pre-Kick, which I find insane.
What are the singles? Because I think I know NXS a little bit, so I'm wondering if I know any of them.
So songs that I love pre-Kick so I think "Don't Change" is probably one of my favorite songs of all time.
I don't think I know it.
Yeah, and it's it's mad. And Shabu Shabat. Shabu's a fucking terrible name for an album. Shabu Shabat.
Never heard that in my life.
It sounds nothing like anything from an NXS catalogue. It's quite arty, experimental, new wave, and it's loads of brilliant.
But you know what we could do? Bands that sounded very different at the beginning of the careers, and we could do NXS, we could do Simple Minds, and we could do Human League.
Yeah, exactly. So the typical sound is nothing. Yeah, that's a good shout.
Fine, we can do anything we want. We can do anything.
We can do anything.
But yeah, you were asking, okay, is that the end of our Australia episodes? For now, I think we will probably be back. And actually, I didn't shout this out at all, but Australian listeners are the third biggest group who listen to our podcast. It's UK, US, and Australia. So hello, people in Australia. We hope we haven't insulted your country too much. And I would like to shout out Auntie Donna, the comedy sketch trio. I've been really listening to their podcast, and it is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life, and I'm listening to it for the second time. And I really want to shout out the Pun Watch podcast, which hasn't, existed in a while, but it's basically like a host reads out a news story that has a pun headline, and these different comedians have to come up with what the pun headline is, and it's honestly very, very entertaining if you like puns. If you don't, I don't recommend it. But yeah, Album Club as well, Australian podcast that's really good. So guys, give us your Australian podcast recommendations, and keep on having a very vibrant music and cultural scene, I suppose. Well done, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Hooroo, everyone. That's the end of our Australia episode, and we hope that you enjoyed it heaps. I would just like to say that I forgot to mention one of the songs that I talk about when discussing the Vines, Spaceship. I think that you should go and listen to it. Fran probably thinks that you shouldn't. We still love each other despite not always agreeing on music, but we do like to hear from people who do share our music tastes. So if you agree with me over Fran, please do get in touch. You can tweet us at OUMusicPod. Our Instagram is at overunderatedmusicpod. And you can email us overunderatedmusicpod@gmail.com. I hope you are throwing many shrimps on many Barbies, or your plant-based equivalents. Have a lovely day, or evening, or morning. Toodaloo.